Do you ever wonder, what in the world was it thinking when you hear about a ghost haunting someone? Well, now you can find out. In Ghost Stories The Flip Side, Fiona Fabblestabble, ghost and ghost representative, tells the ghost stories from the side of the ghosts. So sit back and get ready for the real story. The Flip Side.
I'm Fiona Fabblestabble, ghost and ghost representative. This is Ghost Stories The Flip Side, where we tell the ghost story from the living side, and then the ghost gets to tell the story from their side. Today we have Earl Jackson, and he brings us the story of the Bermuda Triangle, Charlotte's Tale of Terror. Here goes. Hi everyone, my name is Julie, and I'm the kids program coordinator for this cruise, and also your guide for today. Okay kids, time for a tour of the captain's control room. Charlotte had never seen a control room on a cruise ship before, so she followed Julie with interest. Her mom had won the cruise in a contest, and it was the first time for Charlotte and her parents to go on a cruise. They were on a big cruise ship in the Atlantic Ocean. The cruise had been a dream come true so far. Great food everywhere, all the time. She'd eaten more than she ever had before in her whole life, seemed like. And fun activities, too. Kids' activities and family activities. Her parents were so relaxed and happy. They were fun to be with. But today's tour was for kids only. So Charlotte had left her parents lounging by the pool. Julie turned around and asked the group, "Do you know where we are in the ocean?" "We're on the edge of the Bermuda Triangle. But don't worry, we won't go into it." She giggled a bit. "A lot of people are superstitious about it after all. They say ships and planes disappear from the triangle without a trace. But who really knows?" She shrugged her shoulders and smiled. The group entered the control room. The captain was sitting in a chair in front of the control panel and staring at a computer screen. "Hi, Captain Matt. What can you tell our little group today?" Julie asked. This is not a good time," the captain replied. Charlotte eyed a little closer. It looked like the controls were going haywire. The map kept flickering on and off, and the screen started showing a message that said, "Data not available." The first mate came rushing in as the captain reached for the satellite phone. Julie looked surprised, but then her big smile returned. "Oh, okay, come on, kids. Let's go see if we can find Katie the kangaroo." They filed out of the control room as Charlotte held back in the doorway. The captain didn't even notice her because he was so focused on what was going wrong. He spoke tersely into the phone. "The instruments are down. Everything is down. We're drifting. We must have crossed the boundary into the Bermuda Triangle, and the seas are getting really rough. We keep veering further off course, as far as I can tell, but without instruments, it's hard to tell or even to know how to get back on track." He was sweating and his face was red. She couldn't make out the other side of the conversation, but could hear a faint voice talking back to the captain. His voice rising, the captain said, "I don't know. One of the crew told me he thinks a monster storm is coming, worse than anyone could imagine, but I can't see anything on my instruments. Can you give me some guidance? What do I do?" He was yelling now, and his eyes were bugging out of their sockets. Charlotte heard a loud crackle from the phone and then nothing. The captain slammed the phone down on the control panel. Charlotte figured it was a good time to go find her parents. She ran to the pool. "Mom, Dad, something bad is happening." She told them what she'd heard. "He said we're in the triangle now. You know how scary that is." Her dad said, Now, Charlotte, those stories about ships and planes that enter the triangle and disappear without a trace are just that, stories. There's always a logical explanation. They just don't have the time and money to look hard enough for the wreckage." Charlotte grasped the necklace, the medallion necklace her grandfather had given to her and that she always wore, a round coin imprinted with a guardian angel on a chain around her neck. She ran her thumb over the angel. "What about Grandpa's ship in World War II? It disappeared and no one ever heard from him again." Charlotte's grandpa's ship had been carrying vital cargo during the war, special metal to be used in making the aircraft needed to fight the war. It had been going through the triangle when it disappeared, and no trace of the ship or any of the crew had ever been found since. Well, that was war, her dad said. No one knows what happened. A lot of things happen in war that are never explained. It could have been captured or sunk. We just don't know. But they never found it. What if the same thing happens to us? What if we just disappear without a trace? Her mom said, "Calm down, Charlotte. It will be fine." Just then, the captain came over the loudspeaker. We veered a little off course, and there seems to be a storm coming up. So please be prepared to act if need be. I'll give you more information as we know more. The other people lounging by the pool looked around with alarm, then sprang up off their chairs and hurried toward the doors to the inside corridors where the cabins were. A crowd at the doorway soon formed, people yelling, shoving, and pushing each other in their panic to get inside. "Let's go around the outer perimeter of the ship. It'll be faster without all these crowds," Charlotte's father said. They made their way to the outer railing on the starboard side and were heading toward their cabin when the storm came up, fast and furious. The wind howled along the ship's decks, and rain pelted everything. The sky darkened, only to light up again when it was seared by bright bolts of lightning. Huge waves started rocking the boat. Charlotte's dad yelled, "Hold on!" But the decks and railings were slippery from the rain. Charlotte couldn't hold on and she fell down. Her mom picked her up and curled one arm around the railing, using her other arm to hold on to Charlotte. Her dad did the same thing on Charlotte's other side. She was sandwiched in between her parents. The three of them pressed up against the railing and her parents holding on as tight as they could. Other people on the ship were trying to get past them on the slippery deck to get to the doorway to go to the inner part of the ship, out of the wind and rain. Her dad yelled at them to hold on to the railing, but his words were whipped away by the wind. The ship lurched to the starboard side, the side that Charlotte and her parents were on, and everyone not holding on went sliding toward the railing. It lurched again, and a few people slid off the boat completely and into the ocean. A couple of crew members were close by, and they quickly tried to lower a lifeboat into the waves to find the people, but the wind and waves were so intense that the lifeboat got torn from their hands and blown up into the sky. They threw life preservers over the side, which blew all around, but a couple of them landed in the water. The ship was listing heavily to the starboard side now. The starboard side of the ship was underwater up to the 5th deck. Charlotte and her family were on the 6th deck, and the ocean was only a few feet away from Charlotte's family as they held onto the railing for dear life. They weren't even standing straight up by this point. Their side of the boat was at a 45-degree angle to the ocean, and so were they as they leaned on the railing. Charlotte began to think they were going to capsize. Everyone that was left on deck was holding onto the railings for dear life. The deck was getting wetter and more slippery, the railings too. During a slight lull in the wind, a man broke away from the railing to crawl up toward a doorway to the inside of the boat. But the wind came howling back through the decks with a vengeance. It caught him and threw him into the air before hurling him into the waves. He flailed about in the ocean until his hand hit one of the life preservers that had been tossed from the boat. He was able to grab onto it and keep afloat in the storm. Barely. By this time, the boat was listing so badly toward the waves that Charlotte was close enough to see him spitting out ocean water. They could almost touch the ocean, and it seemed the ship would tip them into the ocean any minute. "I wonder if this is how Grandpa died," Charlotte thought, her medallion swinging in the wind, her parents with anxious looks on their faces. She shut her eyes, but opened them again just as a big bolt of lightning lit up the ocean next to her. Charlotte could not believe what she was seeing. There, in the ocean just beneath her, lit up by the lightning, Charlotte saw her grandpa. He was with a long line of men, all dressed in Navy uniforms, and they had their arms stretched out and their hands on the side of the ship, and it looked like they were walking and pushing the ship. At the same time, it felt like the ship hit a barrier. The listing motion stopped. The storm still raged, but suddenly the ship felt like it was being righted. The motion continued until the ship was nearly upright in the raging storm. Then it started moving purposefully through the waves, and before too long, a clear horizon appeared. The ship moved out of the storm and into calm seas. Charlotte and her parents collapsed onto the deck, crying and laughing from relief and rubbing their aching arms. The captain came on the speaker. "Well, everyone, it was tough going for a few minutes there, but thanks to my experience as a captain and some tricky maneuvering on my part, I managed to save the ship. What? Oh, and the crew helped a little too. Yes, we're out of danger and we're headed to the nearest safe port. What? Oh, really? And the Coast Guard is already searching for the passengers who fell off the ship. You can go back to your cabins now. Thank me later. When Charlotte and her parents got to their cabin, everything was a mess. Their clothes and belongings scattered all around. Charlotte was relieved to see that she still wore the medallion around her neck that her grandfather had given her. But the guardian angel on it looked a little different somehow, like it was really, really tired. They were able to get off the ship the next day, and when Charlotte looked at the starboard side of the ship, she swore she saw handprints there. The news reports gave the captain all the credit for saving the ship, but Charlotte knew what really happened. And strangely enough, her parents believed her. Hold that ship! I have Earl Jackson here, and he wants to fill in a few details. Earl? Well, yes, that was me that my granddaughter Charlotte saw during the storm. Me and over 100 other ghosts from my unit and another unit from a different ship that went down in the Triangle during the war. That cruise ship captain took all the credit, but he was worse than useless, and it really irks all of us ghosts who did the actual rescue. The true story is the other men and I were all in the Navy during World War II, transporting vital materials for the war effort, when we were caught in an even fiercer storm than the one Charlotte was in, with no one to help us. We all went down with our ship, or what was left of it. Our ship and all of us got so ripped up there wasn't much left to find. I'm telling you, no natural event brought on the storm that sunk us or that tried to get my family. We don't know what is behind that kind of thing, but it is not a normal thing. But anyway, I could sense Charlotte's terror. The medallion I gave her helps me connect to her, and I was horrified that she was on that ship. I sent out word through the ghost grapevine that any ghost that had any kinetic ability at all was needed. While the members of the armed services in World War II were strong, determined men and women, and their ghosts are strong too. My entire unit and the other unit that had gone down in the Triangle came to help. It took a lot of us, but we were able to right the ship and push it to safety. And without that captain's help, mind you. Now, Fiona, I know you always have little takeaways from this story, from these stories you do. So I guess mine would be, watch where you're going. Well, thank you, Earl. That was a great story. And thank all of you for your service. This is Fiona Fabblestabble, Ghost and Ghost Rep. This is Ghost Stories, the Flip Side. See you next time.
This has been Ghost Stories, the Flip Side. The ghosts thank you for listening and wish you a long and happy life.